Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today on This Needs to Be Read. When I think of the book titles that I get an opportunity to interview and to discover, I'm thinking I'm learning something new, but this book told me basically I've been doing this all my life. So my next guest, and of course you must know it has to do with food. Books and food are my favorite things. So our book today is Our Fermented Lives by Dr. Julia Skinner, and she's going to join the conversation in just a moment. But I was thinking of things that, like I eat sauerkraut and pickles. I didn't think of it being fermented. So when you think of the word fermented, unless you already know what it is, you're thinking, oh, I don't eat that. And yes, we do. And if you eat cheese, I eat cheese. So anyway, I was wowed by how much of my culture is already, this is something that we do to preserve foods. I did not realize that. So I learned a lot with this book. So this one's a keeper for my library. This won't be a gift for someone, but one of my friends, if you're listening, we'll tell you at the end how to get your own copy. Welcome into the conversation, Dr. Julia Skinner. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Let's talk about this fermented lives, because I was thinking, I don't know what this is, and I was like, oh, yes, I do. I do this. I have pickled things. I have preserved meats, you know. So let's get into this. And history has been a big thing lately, so thinking about how it's ingrained in my culture already. Sometimes we hear a word that seems new, and we think, oh, I have to go and do this whole life change, not realizing how much we're already doing right. So that excited me while I was reading your book.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, and I like what you said about how many things we don't think of as being fermented. I mean, when I started fermenting food, I just thought of, sauerkraut and yogurt maybe, but it's chocolate and vanilla, coffee, black tea, obviously sauerkraut and yogurt too, cheese, bread, wine, beer, like it's, all of these different things, like all of this ferments all the time, yeah.
So, and then the other thing that grabbed my attention, because we have become a do-it-yourself society, you get on YouTube and you can learn anything, right? So if I wanted to do these processes at home myself, like I really don't know, like that thought is overwhelming to me, like gardening is overwhelming to me. So where would someone even begin, I mean, other than going to the grocery store and shopping like we usually do? How do we do it ourselves?
The thing I'd really encourage people to do is maybe pick one or two recipes and start there. I think like with gardening, it's easy to kind of, have a giant plan of, oh, I want to try all this, and then you try it all at once and it feels overwhelming. But if you just try one or two to start, pick a couple simple things. I mean, sauerkraut's really easy. A fermented hot sauce, I mean, really you just take peppers, pack them in a jar, add your salt and your water, make sure that they're all the way covered. Let them sit out on the counter for like a week or two. Throw it in the blender. There you go. You have hot sauce now. It can be very, very simple.
And I love hot sauce. This is so. This is crazy. I mean, crazy good though. So I can make my own hot sauce. Now, sauerkraut, is that cabbage?
Yep, that's cabbage, and you can add in, some people will add shredded carrots, some people will add spices. I mean, it's, the nice thing about this is you have these basic recipes, and you can add whatever you want to make it yours.
Maybe we covered this already. The top 5 fermented foods that we didn't realize were fermented foods.
So I think chocolate and vanilla are probably 2 big ones that people don't think of. I think, soy sauce also probably people don't realize is fermented, and miso paste. And coffee. I mean, I think, a lot of us have our morning coffee.
Every morning. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No. And chocolate. It's like I gotta have it. So, oh, wow. Now, when we're reading your book, Our Fermented Lives, a history, how fermented foods have shaped cultures and communities, is this something that every culture has, or is this just certain cultures prefer this?
So every single culture in the world has at least one fermented food. So all of us are doing this stuff, and I think that's really cool because it means wherever in the world your ancestors are from, there's a fermented food that's connected to them. It's it's so widespread. It's really beautiful.
So in your book, you talk about fermentation. I think it's the second chapter when you're talking about preserving foods. So when we think of, well, of course, we're making a hot sauce, and that's going to be in the week you said. But when we're thinking about preserving a food out of season, I guess talk a little bit more about fermenting being, I guess, a preservation process. I wasn't understanding a little bit, so I wanted to ask you that while I had you here.
Of course, yeah. So fermenting, I mean, we historically have done all kinds of different things to preserve our food. There's smoking food, drying food, canning food, like there's all these different things, but fermentation has been one of the really, really pivotal ones that we've done. And basically, the reason why we do that is, historically, when food would come ripe, that was the time you had that food. Like when cabbages were ready. There wasn't a fridge. There wasn't, a grocery store to go get more cabbages. You kind of had the ones you had. And so this made it so that you could make those cabbages into something you could eat later. And, I think it was very much a food security thing for people, like, okay, now we have something to eat this winter. So big history of preservation with it. And that's one of the main reasons we started doing it.
So my daughter and I were talking about butter the other day, and the question was, is butter dairy and does it need to be refrigerated? And I want to know your answer.
So yes, it is dairy, and I have refrigerated my butter and not refrigerated my butter. I tend to refrigerate it now. I'm in Atlanta. It gets very warm here, and so now I tend to refrigerate it, especially in the summer. But, my family in North Carolina, I mean, I grew up going out, my grandma would just kind of have the little butter dish sitting out. So, it kind of depends on, where you are and your own preferences, I guess.
So it is a preference. It's not a have to, because we were like, it has to be one or the other. So that settles that. Now, I want, before we leave, a little piece of a little more history. How does the act of making and eating fermented food support interaction with others and growing communities?
Well, so
I guess I want to couple that question with this other question too. Tell me why you believe it's important for us to document and share these traditions of fermentation. I mean, I think I can guess one now because I didn't.
Yeah, no, that's, I think those two go really well together because when we think about, we were just talking about preservation. Well, people would come together when all of that food was ready during harvest season, and they would make it together. And then when you make that food together, the process of making it and sharing, that is one way of building community, of showing care for your community and interacting. But then because you're making something to feed each other in the future, you're also making something that cares for the community in a different way. And, I think that's really beautiful. And when we document those traditions, when we say, this is an important part of our community and who we are, we're documenting it and we're allowing future generations to learn from that and to have those experiences too.
Awesome. Our time is up. Thank you so much, Dr. Julia Skinner. She is the author of Our Fermented Lives. Pick this book up anywhere books are sold, as well as check out your local bookstores. If they don't have it, tell them they need to get it. Thank you, Dr. Julia Skinner, for stopping by. This needs to be read.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to This Needs to Be Said. I hope you've gained something from what has been shared. Send me your comments and show ideas through the website at tntbsmedia.com. I'd love to hear from you.